In this video, I'm going to talk about how to convert the data on your spreadsheet into something called an Excel table, and then we'll demonstrate what advantages that provides. So I have my employee data. If I hit the Control End key, it goes to row 538, Control Home, we come back. I'm going to convert this to something called a table, and first I'm going to demonstrate several ways that you do that. On the insert ribbon, there's something here called table. So if you just select a single cell in the data and go insert table, notice in this dialog box it goes, I'm going to go from A4 to M538, and there's a checkbox that says my table has headers. If you hit OK, we have now created something called a table, and it automatically bands the rows and colors the information. If you don't like the coloring, there's this thing, table styles, right here. We can run up here and clear that, and it's still a table, but without the banded rows. So that was one way to create a table, insert table. Let me show you another way. I'm going to Control Z to get rid of that. If you hit Control T, that will bring up that exact same create table dialog box. It's guessing A4 to M538. My table has headers. We're back to the exact place we were a second ago. So you can either do insert table or Control T. And let's convert it back one more time. On the home ribbon, format as table. So this will do the same thing, except I can choose what color I want the data to be and what kind of style I want before it creates the table. So for instance, if I want this, the orange table style light 13, I click on that, but still that dialog box comes up and says, okay, A4 to M538, my table has headers, you hit OK, and now you have your table, but instead of being blue and white, we've selected an orange style. So what did we just see? We can go insert table, Control T, or format as table, all three of which will turn your data into a table. Now let me demonstrate on this other sheet one mistake that students can make. I am going to delete row 3 right here, delete, and just to get this out of the way, I'm going to delete that also. Because I deleted row 3, I'm going to end up with a little bit of a problem. As before, I'll select a single cell in the data, and now I'm going to hit Control T on the keyboard to create the table. But look at what this dialog box is doing. It's saying, all right, A1 to M537. It does not select my table has headers. So if you're not paying attention, you just see this box and instantly hit OK. This is what your table looks like. It put these filter buttons way at the top, not on your column headings. It has column 1, 2, 3, and 4 because there were no column headings. And so at this point, your table is kind of messed up. I'm going to Control Z. So insert table. When you look at this dialog box, most of the time Excel guesses correctly what is your data, but sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, we'll have to select through the data we want. I'm going to hit Shift Control down arrow and mention, check that my table does have headers, and hit OK. And so now we're good to go. If I run home, this table looks like the original ones we had here. And all of this happened because we didn't have a blank row between our data and the titles that we have at the top of our spreadsheet. So just be careful, because I see this occasionally in students' work, and you recognize it right away because you have, these are called filter buttons, way up here with column 1, 2, 3, and 4. So back to our original table, and let's talk about some formatting on this and then the advantages this thing has. Well, first of all, how do you know you have a table versus just regular data? You maybe would think it's because of these filter buttons, but you can actually turn those on or off, and it doesn't change the fact that you still have a table. Running back to employees 2, I've converted this back to just regular data. They call it a regular range. And the difference is when you click in a table, there's a context-sensitive ribbon called Table Design that shows up. If you run over here and click in the data, that does not show up. That's really the only way you can tell that you have a table or not. So when I run over here, I see I have this ribbon called Table Design. One of the first things you want to do after you create the table is name it, and name it something meaningful, because you're going to reference this name And so the name should reflect something about the data that it contains. So you just type and hit enter. In terms of the table style, you can change it at any time or clear it out if you don't like it. But if you want to do something different, you could run over here and change that. As long as we're looking at the table design ribbon, here's some other style options. Do you want to see the header row? I've never seen where you don't want to see it. Very often you'll have banded rows, which is kind of nice. You can bold the first column or bold the last column. If you want, you could do banded columns, but then you probably wouldn't do banded rows. So it just depends what better reflects how you want to look at your data. One of the advantages of a table that you don't have over a regular Excel range is watch what happens when I scroll down. In a previous video, we talked about freeze panes. When you have your data in an Excel table, the columns automatically turn into the column headings. So no matter where I'm at in my data, I can see those column headings. That does not work when I'm scrolling to the right. We demonstrated with freeze panes that I may want to keep these 3 columns visible as I scroll to the right. A table really doesn't fix that. You still would have to go up to view and freeze panes in order to freeze those 3 columns. But it is kind of nice that the row or column headings stay there. Another advantage is if I add a column, so I just will call it new column, it will automatically get incorporated into the table and it comes in with the banded rows. If you want to delete the column, you can just right click and delete table column. And let me demonstrate something else. I'm going to put some numbers here, just a sequential order of numbers. Drag it down. I'm going to come to our table and I want to insert a record right here. When you right click on that record or row, you can see insert. One of your choices are, do I want to insert a table column to the left or a row above? In this case, I'm going to insert a row above. And when I do that, I have a brand new row in my data. It follows the same banded row formatting, but notice what it didn't do to the data off to the side. It didn't insert the row all the way across. And so it's nice that tables, when you insert and delete records and rows, ignore the information that's off to the side of the table or if we had anything below the table. When you scroll to the very bottom of your table, there's a little indicator right there next to the 3, that hash mark. It's almost like the autofill handle. That indicates the end of the table. If you were having to hand enter data and type along, you could just hit the tab key. And when you get to the last field and the last record and hit the tab key, the table will automatically add a new record or a new row. And then when I get to the end again and hit tab, it automatically adds a new row. Oh, so that's kind of nice. If you want to resize your table, you can grab that indicator and scoot it up. And then, of course, it gets rid of the things that we have no data in it. Just like adding a record, if we want to delete a record, simply click on it, right click, here's delete. And now it's asking, do you want to delete the column or the row? And we'll delete the row. Again, it doesn't mess with the information that you may have off to the side of your table. One other checkbox that we didn't play with under the table design, and that is this thing called a total row. When you click on that at the very bottom of your data, bottom of the table, it adds this total row. And if you select any cell in that total row, you'll get a drop-down box. You click on it, and now I can take an average, count numbers, max, min, sum, more functions. And so, for instance, if I want to sum the base salary of everybody, I'll just hit the sum function, and it adds all that up. If you just want to count how many people we have, you could do that right here. I'll just do it off the first name column. We'll just say count, and that's how many people we have at our company. So the total row is kind of as a quick way to see information at the bottom. Notice on this function right here where we sum the base salary, it doesn't use the sum function. We'll talk about this later in other videos. But when we filter the data, which also is another video, this subtotal will reflect the answer of the filtered data versus all of the data. So that's why you'll see the word subtotal right there. Another thing, speaking of formulas, if I wanted to insert a column and we're going to add up the salary, bonus, and commission. So column to the left, I'm going to call it total compensation. Probably should have been all capitals. That's okay. Let's wrap that text. Okay, total compensation. I'm going to add up these three cells. Notice this. When I hit equal and click on the base salary, it doesn't say H5. It has this thing. This is called a structured reference, an unqualified structured reference that has this @ symbol. That @ symbol means this row, and then of course square bracket, base salary, square bracket. So it's taking a look at this row in this column. So that's what that means. And when I hit the plus sign, boom, @ bonus. So again, square bracket, @ bonus means this row, this column, plus sign, I hit commission, and now we're at commission. Square bracket means this row, this column. So it's adding up those three numbers, but it's not saying H5, I5, J5. And when you hit enter in the table, automatically fills the rest of the information with that same formula, and you don't have to double click or copy down. It'll do that for you automatically. Structured references are actually a little easier to read because H5, I5, J5 really doesn't mean anything, whereas if I look and go, oh, I'm adding up base salary plus bonus plus commission, it's more intuitive. Now let's go back to the table design ribbon. I'll hit enter on this formula and look at a couple other features. One of them is remove duplicates. So if you have a lot of data and you feel like there might be some duplicate data in your information, you can click remove duplicates. And it's going to ask, let me make sure I select a single cell. Select a single cell, click remove duplicates. And it's going to ask, well, how do I determine a duplicate? What columns do I look at to see if I have duplicate information? So for instance, you might just decide, I don't want any people with the same first and last name. If you see that, let's remove it. In this case, we're going to select all and say, if all of the columns have the exact same information, that's what is a duplicate. So when you hit OK, it'll say, hey, I found two. It doesn't show you which two they were, but when you now we'll hit OK and it'll remove two of those duplicates. And the last feature is, what if I want to take this from a table and convert it back to a regular range? Same, right below remove duplicates is convert to range. You can also do this by right-clicking on any single cell within your data, and under the table is convert to range. So remember, I have a table design ribbon. Well, once I click convert to range, do you want to do a normal range? You say yes. It leaves the banded rows, but when I select the data, notice that ribbon is now missing. That's why the banded rows is not a good indicator if it's a table or not. Even those filter buttons, you can turn on or off the filter buttons with it being a table or not. And even when I convert this to a table, real quick, insert table, hit OK. Now if you notice here, I can turn on or off those filter buttons. So banded rows, filters, nothing really helps determine if it's a table except that table design ribbon. That's your indicator. In the next couple of videos, we'll spend more time talking about that filter button and the various ways you can filter your data, and then we'll do another video on sorting the information in your table.